Welcome back to Connect with Christina. And across from me is attorney Josh Nuñez. I can fire a million questions, but I want to start the opposite way. I want you to tell us a little bit of your background, and then I will start with my questions.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm Josh Nuñez. A little bit of my background. I'm a father of two kids. I'm a coach. I coach soccer. I play soccer. I'm 43 years old, and I still play soccer against 25-year-olds, and I get beat every time, but I bring the fight to them. I am an immigrant. I relate with the immigrant story, and I'm an attorney here in town, so I have a legal mind. I like to think that I have a philosophical, imaginative mind, and I have a desire to weave all those things of my background into a meaningful life, not only for me, but for my kids, for my wife, for my community, for my neighbors, for my clients. And so that's my journey. That's who I am.
You are, don't turn red now. You're a caramel mocha like me, but you're definitely a highly well-regarded, not just as an attorney, but as a person. So
thank you.
It's nice that I've had the opportunity to meet you. Attorney Triumph,
yes,
Curiel,
yeah.
he echoes that.
Oh, wonderful.
And I think you both have the same values and mission and view of life. And I admire how much you put your family first.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first question is going to start with your journey as an immigrant. May I ask, where your family's from?
Sure. So my family is from Mexico. My dad's from Durango. My mom is from Chihuahua.
Ooh, good tacos.
Yeah, good tacos. So my journey started, so I grew up in Chihuahua. I was probably 6 years old when we came to the U.S. And so, there's a quote that resonates with me that I like to share often. It's from a book called Exit West. And the quote goes like this: when we immigrate, we murder from our lives the people we leave behind. And I find a lot of truth in that, because when we left Mexico, we left our culture, our language, our way of life. But, I also left my grandparents. I left my close friends. And because once you come to the U.S., a lot of times you're not able to go back, because then you can't come right back again. What ends up happening is you disconnect from those people. And, the quote just resonates with me. But not only because it's sad because of what you leave behind, but because it forces a question of, well, what did you gain in coming here? What was the possibility in coming here? Was it worth it? And so for me, my immigrant story is not only about what was left behind, but also about what was gained in coming here. And that's been, the immigrant story is not what was left behind only, but what is gained, and was it worth it? Because you leave things that you hold dear. You come here, and then you gain opportunity. Mm-hmm. You gain the upward mobility that only America can provide, in my opinion. I think this is a beautiful country, in part because you have upward mobility. You work hard. You're an entrepreneur. You have imagination. You take risk, and then it pays off. Where else in the world can you find that? For us, we found it here. And so that's my immigrant story.
I love that. And you said you left at 6?
Yeah, I was 6 years old, spoke only Spanish. I remember getting to California, the Bay Area, San Francisco, and I remember the first day of school. I had this teacher, and her name was Miss Skelton, something like that. I understood skeleton, and truthfully, she was tall, slender. She was a little older in her life, and she was dry and no sense of humor, no warmth in her, and she did not at all try to help a non-English speaker. And so I remember being 6 years old. I remember flunking in the first grade, and it was just a tough experience for me. And then year 2. They put me with this other teacher, and she was a little shorter, okay? And I remember her cheeks were a little rosy, and she had curly hair, and she liked me. She would talk. I remember when my mom would come to the school, she would go out of her way and she would talk to my mom, and she would say nice things about me. And man, that was so impactful. It made me feel like I belonged in this country. And
Wow.
I've tried to find her. I've tried to find this teacher, and I haven't been able to.
Do you remember her name?
I don't remember her name. I think it's Miss Dolores, but I'm not sure.
We're going to go on a hunt now.
Yeah. So
We're
trust me,
gonna go on a
I've
hunt.
looked on Facebook, Instagram. I've tried to find her. I've looked on the California's teacher roles. I haven't been able to find her. However, as I've reflected in my immigrant story, I know that when she would make nice comments to my mom and she knew I was listening, it impacted me and it made me feel like I could belong. And, you know, nowadays, like I coach my kids, and some of these kids, you know, from all walks of life. And I always know that they're listening. And so when I talk to the parents, I'll try to say something positive or affirmative to impact those kids. And that's my greatest joy right now. That's like my calling, is to try to influence those kids. You know, I like to tell people, like, the parents don't know, but I am indoctrinating those kids. You know, I'm trying to get them to believe in themselves.
Yeah.
I'm trying to inspire them. Sometimes I'm hard on them. I'm mean to them. But I know I'm trying to build character in those kids, and I'm really enjoying it.
Isn't it interesting, like just a very small gesture like that, how powerful it really can impact someone? I mean, you carried that with you
Yeah.
your whole life.
Yeah, my whole life. And, you know, I look at my brother, Robert. He's a teacher, school teacher. And I see what he does. You know, he views his teaching vocation as a ministry. And, you know, every Sunday he's got like a group of 15 kids and he's teaching them how to play guitar, how to play violin. He's like gifted in the musical space, and he takes hours and hours and hours of his time to teach these kids. And then he'll spend Saturdays going around to either churches or community events or Christmas caroling, and he's taking these kids to play in front of these people. And I'm like, man, what he is doing with those kids is inspiring them to be part of community. And I think it's impactful, and he'll probably start seeing that impact, you know, because I think his youngest kid turned 15 in terms of was 15 years ago when he started teaching. So his kids are now entering college. They're graduating college. And I think those kids, because of the impact he's had on them, are going to be something special.
I'm willing to bet it's going to be a few of those kids who will want to find him.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're trying to find her.
You know, it's the funniest thing, because he celebrated 15 years of teaching, and so he called it a quinceañera.
Oh,
and so all these kids
I love that
he has taught throughout the years came into town, and the gals who had a quinceañera and dressed up in their dress, they all brought back their dresses and they tried to fit into them. And it was just a special thing, because it talks not just about him as an individual, but about the importance of having leaders, of having people who impact other people. And so, yeah, I celebrate him, you know, and I think, you know, that's his way of being a leader.
We're going to have to find him and maybe bring him here somehow, some way. But going back to that teacher, I'm invested now. So this is in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And would you say, how old would she be right now? And do you think she's retired? Obviously, I think.
I mean, I'm 43 years now, so I was 6 years old. So 38 years ago, you know, who was a teacher 38 years ago? It was in Mountain View, California. It was Castro School.
We're gonna have to go to work.
Yeah, yeah. It'd be fantastic to find her. I mean, I get really emotional when I think about her, because you know, one of the first lessons that I learned at a very young age, you know, navigating this, you know, crossing a border, coming to a new culture, you know, I learned very early on that dignity is not equally spread out amongst people. And the law, because I'm a practitioner of the law does not equally, you know, pass out dignity. Society will take people who will give dignity to some groups of people who are able to live their lives loudly and boldly, and they're able to wear loud colors, and they're able to share their misgivings about things. And then there's a different segment of people who, in a more soft way, they live out their dignity. But then there's also individuals who are marginalized. And society will take their dignity through laws, through systems of oppression. And for me, I learned that at a very young age through my immigrant story. And I'm not like complaining about it. I just gained insight that, people are stripped of their dignity through the law. One of the hardest lessons I've had to learn as an attorney is you have to be careful not to fall in love with the law, because the law has the potential to strip people of dignity. The law is black and white, and the law is written by individuals who are in a majority. And if you're in a minority, the law is not written for you. It is written for people in the majority. And so you have to not fall in love with the law because it can strip people. When I look right now at our immigrant community, and I look at, how the laws prevent immigrants from fixing their statuses, what you're basically doing through a framework of laws is stripping people of dignity. And that's the law. The law is unjust, and it strips people of dignity. And so, to bring it back to what we were discussing, I learned at a very early age that, the law doesn't necessarily provide dignity, but individuals can provide dignity. And that teacher to me at a very young age, man, she just dignified me as a student. And then I became a student for life. And
it's like she saw you.
Yeah, 100%. She saw my humanity. And, I remember when we first got to the U.S., my grandpa, we were pretty impoverished in Mexico. And my grandpa made these huaraches. A huarache is basically, he went down to the river, he pulled out a tire from the river, and then he cut out a sole, and that became the bottom of the huarache. And then he got some leather, and he basically created a sandal, right? It's a Mexican sandal. And I remember coming to the U.S., and that was my footwear. And so we're going to go to school, and, they send me back, and they tell my mom, look, he needs to wear closed-toe shoes. Okay, we couldn't go to school. So I remember her just trying to find a way to find some shoes. And I remember us coming across the Salvation Army, and they gave me a pair of shoes, and they happened to be soccer shoes. And they were cleats. And I remember they were white cleats, soccer shoes, and they weren't like the turf ones that are like soft. They're just hard. And I remember walking to school and just clack, 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 clack. And I was so proud of those shoes, and all that to say is that, I have found, the immigrant story to be very empowering. I have found charity to have made a difference in my life. And so now as a professional, one of the things that I'm most proud of at the law firm is that the law firm leads in that space. We like to be charitable. Just a few months ago, there's this school that got formed in town, and I'm really proud that we get to sponsor some of their events, sponsor some of their initiatives. Over the years, we've been so blessed ourselves as a firm that we've given back, and we've been able to put our logo in that charity space. So I believe in charity. I believe in good teachers. And that's my immigrant story.
Yeah. And you think about how many other 6-year-old Joshes are in those that you're able to give back to now.
Yeah.
There's, so I'm just stuck on finding this lady. So you and I are going to go to work. And then when we find her, we're going to fly over there.
Yeah. Well, to me, I think about this lady, wherever she is now, I'm sure she's maybe got siblings, she's got kids, maybe parents.
We'll find someone related to her.
Just to share with them how impactful their loved one was would be worthwhile.
Yeah. Yep, we're fully invested. So in your journey, what would you say are some of the hardest times that you had gone through? And then maybe on the opposite end, like something really powerful and uplifting that you went through?
I mean, some of the hardest things that I've gone to has obviously been managing the socioeconomic life that we've been handed, right? So I remember we were in San Francisco, And we were kids. My dad working hard, 2 jobs always, sometimes 3 jobs, trying to get ahead. Rent was too expensive. And so he gets told, like, hey, there's an oil rush in Texas. You should go to Texas. There's an oil rush. And so he decides to take the family just blindly. Let's go to Texas. And I remember getting there, and we had a Toyota truck with the camper. And we just pull up because he's got this job guarantee. And I remember, we had nowhere to stay. And so it's not like you just say, oh, well, we're going to stay in a hotel. Why don't you just stay at a hotel? Mm-hmm. Well, in a certain socioeconomic block, you can't just do that, right? You are like living day by day. And I remember this family in Sundown, Texas, population size 1,200 people. They let us stay in their living room. And that was very kind of them. We met them through the church. My dad had become very religious, and they let us stay there for about 2 weeks. Eventually, my dad meets a farmer, and the farmer has this trailer out in the farm. And, the trailer, he's using it as a chicken coop. And so that's where he keeps his chickens. And my dad, out of desperation says, hey, I've got my family here. How much do you want for this trailer? The guy basically ends up giving it away to my dad. He says, look, you just need to put wheels on it, move it off my lot, and it's yours. And so that's what my dad does, drives it off the lot and finds a lot to park it at. And I just remember my mom, like, scrubbing that trailer. She probably damaged her lungs. She used so much Clorox, and just, she probably has trauma from that. But it became our first home in America. And I remember, when I was applying to law school, and I was like, what do I make my essay about? Like, what do I write? And I just thought and thought and thought. And I remember the first sentence that I wrote, and that is, I have lived in a chicken coop. That was my first sentence to my law school essay.
Have you kept that paper?
No, because I submitted it. And, at the time, you never think like, oh, I should keep this, But I do remember that, and then I spoke about.
That's pretty good. You need to write a book.
I remember that's what that's what I led with, and I don't know if that's what got me in, but I did get into law school, and so something that was so impactful, that was a barrier, a difficulty to overcome, was that, like, finding home. Laying roots and finding a home. We found it in a trailer first, and then eventually you overcome barriers, and then you apply to law school, and that little story just kind of comes back, and it's part of your story. Mm-hmm. And so
it's just, I'm Filipino, you know this, and the last name Nuñez is also, a lot of Filipinos are Nuñez. So if I can say in your behalf how cool it is to see a Nuñez. It's like Nuñez Landscaping, Nuñez Construction, Nuñez this, and then there's Nuñez Law, right? So, and I had met attorney, gosh, you know her too. I'll have to come back to her, but she kind of said the same, because she, you'll cut this out, but Christina Perez.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, she's like, Perez Law,
Perez Law Group, yeah.
It's like, wow. And then did you find yourself like translating a lot for your family during that time as you were growing up? Like, did you find yourself as a young man, like anchoring your parents in,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, one of the most common immigrant stories is that, as you're growing up, you are the spokesperson for your family. Right. And I had an older brother, my brother Robert, but for some reason he would always finagle himself out of it. And it was always me. And, I always tell people, like, English was not my first language. My first language was actually King James version of the Bible. That's the English that I spoke. So when we first came to the U.S.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So my dad eventually became very religious, and eventually he ended up in the ministry, became a pastor of a church. And, I was struggling to learn English, but I had this English Bible, English and Spanish Bible. And I like to say that I taught myself English, but I taught myself English through the Bible. And so when I would speak to people, it was like in this
What a
Old
way to
English.
learn.
King James
Yeah.
old version, of the Bible.
Unto.
Thee, thou shalt not,
Yeah.
Oh my.
I've read the Bible cover to cover several times over in King James, and that was my first language. And so when I would translate for my parents, it was more of I used more of a religious, spiritual inspiration type of flavor, to what I would say, and that's
And that's not an easy first read,
No.
yeah.
to say you taught yourself with that. That's impressive.
Yeah, but if you only know Spanish, right, and you're learning a new language, whether it's English or King James, it's all the same to you. It's all hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the truth is that old King James version of the Bible is, at least from my understanding of it, not as hard as English.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because if you know Spanish, you know the Latin bases, the prefixes, suffixes, and so King James, it just kind of follows that more closely.
Gotcha.
Whereas modern English has evolved, and you know what I mean. So I feel that the King James Bible is more of a stepping stone to English, because English is hard.
He's going to include that in his book. Just FYI. At what point, though, did law school become a thing?
Well, law school became a thing for me when I realized that I didn't want to go to medical school. So I met my wife when she was a second-year medical student, and I was still in college at the time, and I saw what she was going through, the studying that she was doing, and I was like, look, I don't think I want to do this for the rest of my life, for the next 12 years, which is studying the hard sciences. I had a background in biochemistry and math. I was a double major, so I had a very strong, science background, and I was getting ready to apply for med school. But at the time, in 2006, I did an internship at the Morehouse School of Medicine in Atlanta, and I thought, okay, medical school, it aligns. It was focused on public health. And instead of focusing on the sciences, that internship was more focused on policy. Mm-hmm. And so my mentor in that place was this guy named Jody. He introduced me to a bunch of lobbyists, people who were lobbying the CDC, because the Morehouse School of Medicine had an affiliation with the CDC. And so I ended up meeting these gals who are lobbyists, and they're trying to affect...
Yeah, that's not a normal path there.
Yeah, they're trying to affect public health, and they're all lawyers. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I go back home to Texas, and I end up applying for another internship during college still in Austin. And I end up there working with Senator Robert Duncan. He was the chairman for the State Affairs Committee for the Texas Senate. And then I met the real lobbyists. And those people were interesting because a lobbyist has an agenda. Mm-hmm. They're trying to get in front of the
whichever
senators.
Direction, whichever side.
Yes, and they have an endless amount of money to spend. And so I saw their influence, and I also saw their charisma. They were so charismatic. To get to the senator, I was the junior clerk. They would hit me up, and they would say, hey, listen, when your buddies are in town from Texas Tech, go to 6th Street. You go to any bar and just give them this card, and all drinks on us. However, just get me a meeting with Senator Duncan's chief of staff. And so there you are, you're trying to... And I'm like, man, these guys snuck in nicely, Smoothly, yeah. And they're all, good looking. They're all lawyers. They're all just very charismatic and your best friends, all of them. They all just come out. And so anyhow, so when I met them and I saw the policies that they were working on, they are policies that affect people by the millions. And I remember thinking to myself, that's where I want to be. I want to be in a place where I can be maybe a lobbyist, maybe a lawyer, and affect people's lives, not as a doctor, but as a lawyer. And that's when the switch just flipped. I was at that point a senior in college, and I said, okay, I'm not trying to be a doctor anymore. I'm gonna apply to law school.
So you had already spent 4 years to be a doctor?
Yeah, so I had...
And then you made the switch?
Yeah, so this was undergrad, and I had spent the first 3 years focusing on math. I was a math major, and my grades were average, and you can't be average to go to medical school. You have to...
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is not going to cut it. So then I took on a second major, which was biochemistry.
Oh, wow.
I was like, I'm going to show them that I am dynamic enough and smart enough. And that was a hard major. And so my grades barely went
Was it scary to make that jump, to commit to law?
At that point, it wasn't scary. I saw myself as an advocate. I've always seen myself as an advocate.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't know about lawyers and what they could do. I didn't know about lobbyists. I didn't know about laws and policy. And, your lived experience teaches you. And so for me, it was like, okay, this is where I want to be. I want to affect people's lives from a different lens. And that's, so making the jump to wanting to become a lawyer was not difficult. It was like, oh, this aligns better.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
Yeah, and then my wife every now and then will tell me what she does in the medical space, and I'm like, oh my God, I would faint.
Yeah.
Like, I can't look at blood. If I see blood, I'm out. I get crazy.
Yeah.
Shout out to Miss Vanessa. I actually got a chance to meet her at prom, and she is brains and beauty and super nice, and we had fun dancing.
Yes. No, she had a great time. Thank you for having us. We do workers' comp at the firm, and we do personal injury. And so every now and then we'll get these pictures of the injuries, and my staff knows, like, hey, Josh, create a filter and look at it from the side. I just have a hard time looking at
that's me.
Gory pictures, and so So I don't think I could have been a doctor.
Made the right choice.
But I have a question further back though. Okay, so I understand law school, but as an immigrant, right? Started at 6, all these things. Were your parents probably a huge instrumental part of, you are going to go to college, you are going to shoot for the stars?
Yeah.
How did that look for you?
My dad, eventually became very religious. Prior to him getting in the church, he had a substance abuse issue with alcohol. And so, I think that was affecting the family. We moved to Texas. We're religious now. And eventually, my dad, who's a brilliant man, he self-taught in trigonometry. He became a machinist, and then he went to college. He ended up going to college for divinity school and becomes a minister, becomes a pastor. And what he wanted for me was for me to follow those steps, right? To be of service, to be in the ministry. And I think
to be of service. There you go.
I think for the longest time that was my path. I wanted to follow the man of the cloth, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps. But really what my dad was doing once he had his church, he was the point of contact. When new arrivals would come, new immigrants would come, they would come to our church because they knew that he would connect them to farmers, to oil field workers, to carpenters, to machinists. And he would plug people in with different jobs, and they would always come to us first. And so what we were doing, our ministry wasn't necessarily, he's very proud of the hundreds of people that he baptized, right? But really what he was doing was integrating people, integrating immigrants into society, and giving that service to those people. So for me, deciding to become a man of the cloth, like a minister, a doctor, a lawyer, wasn't so much about the title. It was more about, am I going to be of service? And I remember having that conversation with my dad. I said, hey, look, that path is not for me. My path is a little different, and I'm going to be a lawyer. And he was very supportive of that, and he's always been very supportive. And he always reminds me, of what's important in life, which is to be of service. And, when you grow up doing it, it's kind of part of who you're expected to be. And it's not even something that you think about. You just do it.
It's also very rewarding to just acts of service in general.
Yeah. Acts of service, when you live for others, you are rewarded when other people succeed, not just when you succeed, but when you see other people succeed that you've helped or that you've encouraged along the way. That's always been very rewarding.
Yeah.
At 43, how do you view life now? And what's your legacy that you want to leave behind?
Whew. at
Heavy.
43. Well, I mean, I'll speak from a lawyer's lens, right? I think up until like a year ago, I used to think, okay, how do I view myself as a lawyer? And I always saw myself as this lawyer in a black suit with a black tie, fiercely advocating for my clients, never backing down and always trying to win for my clients. And I think over the last year, that's changed. I no longer see myself as that. I see myself as a person who can lose, who can be beaten, who can be broken, but then still show up. And so I think, life has a way of challenging you. And if you live in this persona of, hey, I'm never going to lose and I'm never going to back down and I'm a warrior and I'm, an advocate, at a certain point, one of my favorite authors is James Baldwin. And he says, look, at a certain point, you have to be honest with yourself and you have to look inwardly. And unless you have introspection, then you won't be able to change for the next iteration of things. So for me, when we have a criminal defense department, when a client comes in and they've committed some mistake, they were on the wrong side of the law, and now they're having to be accountable for their mistake. I see so much dignity in these folks because they know what they did. They're trying to pay for their crime, but they want to do it in a responsible manner, and they don't want the government to come down and throw the book at them. They still have to show up for their kids. They still have to show up for their siblings, for their parents, and they're reckoning with that. And I find so much dignity in people who can acknowledge a mistake, who can acknowledge that they went astray, and now they're having to reinvent their lives and start over, and they're paying for their crime. And I take great pride in helping these people navigate that new normal for them. And I find so much dignity in these people, whereas I think there are many a times society is quick to discard people and then just strip people of their dignity. I take great pride in our team, like my team at the firm, who sees the dignity in people, even people who have made mistakes. Mm-hmm. And so I think I want my legacy to be that I always reflected on people's dignity. And if I could help their dignity along, then I did it. Whether they were kids, soccer kids, or whether they were clients. Whether there were clients who, one of the things that I've come to learn doing personal injury work and workers' compensation is that when people get injured and they suffer severe injury, they feel a lot of times that their dignity has been taken away. And so as an attorney who's trying to win their case, you have to keep that in perspective because it's not just about, oh, let's settle this case. No, these people feel like their dignity has been taken away, their way of life, their enjoyment of life. And that's something that I've always been able to keep in perspective. You didn't just suffer...
It's a huge thing.
You didn't just suffer monetary damages. You didn't just gain a scar. It's about dignity. And so, one of my favorite authors too is Frederick Douglass. He was an abolitionist fighting against slavery. And he says, power has never, and I'm paraphrasing here, he says, power has never given anything up without it being demanded. You have to demand from power to give up so you can gain dignity for people. And so I take great pride in being a personal injury attorney, winning dignity for my clients. I take great pride in defending criminal defense clients who are remaking their lives and seeing the dignity in them. And I hope that my legacy as an attorney is seen in that view, through that lens, that I saw dignity in people that I represented.
I appreciate you speaking and sharing those words, especially with clients who have had to deal with things like that. I feel like they need to hear that because you're right. We're just so, as a society, so quick to discard, and we forget that people make mistakes and that they deserve a second chance.
100%.
I have more questions, and I know we're running out of time, but please share more about the firm, all the areas of practice, what makes you different. I obviously know, but if you can share with them also how to find you, and then I will continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So about the firm, in everything we do, we believe in empowering people. We do it through the legal justice system. We do it by engaging in the grassroots, and we do it by educating people in their individual rights. We are a personal injury law firm. We represent injured victims in car accidents. We are a workers' compensation law firm. We represent people who have been injured on the job. We represent the immigrant community, and we represent people who are facing criminal charges. So I invite anyone to call me 602-500-0000.
Save the number, guys. In closing, because I have to torture you today, I have to ask, are both parents still with us?
Yeah, I still have my mom, I have my dad. I stay pretty busy. My wife is pretty busy. And we are lucky that my parents live just, less than a mile away. And so they help out with the kids. And Vanessa's parents help out with the kids as well.
Definitely a blessing, for sure. Yeah. So since you have the opportunity to leave a message for them where they can actually hear it, where my mom's in heaven now, so I just talked to her in silence, but I will give you this platform to leave your parents a message.
Well,
one day, they might not see it right away, but we have it.
They stalk my social media like you can't believe, I would just tell my parents how proud I am of them. The courage that it took to come to a different country, to bring their kids here and to allow them an opportunity to thrive. It's not lost on me. I am incredibly proud of them. I'm incredibly proud of how morally they've lived their life. They've been good people. They've done good by people. They've helped tons of people, and they've raised good kids. And so, I'm really proud of them.
And to the lady that I met, aka Vanessa, it's so admirable because clearly she's your best friend, and you've gone through a lot together.
Yes.
And it's like, going through the motion. When you're weak, she's strong, and when she's weak, you're strong. Yes. So what would you have to say to her?
I would just remind her.
Other than she's pretty.
I'd remind her of how beautiful she is. And how beautiful her spirit is. I mean, I think that if you talk to anyone around her circle, everybody sees how gentle she is, but also how fierce she is for her patients and for her community and for the people around her. She is a protector. She is a caring person, incredibly, incredibly competent. She performs at the highest levels in terms of GI doctors. And she does it with care and with love. And she doesn't miss a beat. And, I, as a personal injury attorney, I don't mind, thinking about when doctors are not performing at optimal levels in a way that are affecting people's health. And I have no questions about her. I mean, I see her dedication to her profession. But the one thing that I would say about to my wife is that she is the best mom in the world. And I'll leave it at that.
Last message for today is for those kids.
So for Bentley, I would say, stay inspired. He is a quiet leader, but he's a leader. And, he comes alive when the situation is right. And I love to see that in him. I love to see him develop his leadership. To my boy Jet, he is incredibly artistic, and he is so special. I would tell him, just protect that special feeling that you have. He cares about people. He's such a caring little kid, and I know that that's going to continue. And I would tell him, just carry that into your life. Care about people. That's how I've led my life, and it's served me well, and it's created a lot of fulfillment for me. So I would tell Jet, keep on caring for people.
I wonder where he gets that from. Yeah. And I lied. There's one more. To all the little 6-year-old Joshes that become in high school and college, traveling your path that was before, advice to them.
I would say, look, you're 6 years old, and you can take on the world. You can take on the world like nobody else can. And I believe in you. You're a special kid. You're learning English. You're protecting your family. As a 6-year-old, you're protecting your family. And that's a beautiful thing. Stay involved in school. Love playing sports.
Soccer.
Especially soccer. and I believe in you. As an immigrant kid who's learning English, I believe in you.
There you go. And we're going to find his teacher, I guarantee you. Josh, thank you for making time. I know how busy you are. This means a lot to us. Also, for surprising us at prom, law prom. It was a surprise. I was so happy that you and Vanessa came. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, we had a great time. Thank you for having us. I was really impressed with the venue, with the site it had of the strip. I mean, it was amazing. So congratulations to the PIA Association. I feel like it's growing, and all thanks to you. You've done a great job with it. So I'm happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, thank you. And we can't wait to have you back. So
Absolutely.
till next time, bye.